All right, so in this chapter, we're going to work on lighting an outdoor scene. So if you go into your project files and look for the scene titled exterior scene and open that up, and you should have something like this. So it's a pretty simple little shot. It's set up for one particular camera angle. If you go into right here to perspective, render cam, and you can see that this is kind of how I set up this shot. So let's go ahead and go back to our perspective just so we can have a little bit more control and leave that camera there. So let's talk about what kind of lighting scheme that we want to do. So I guess we can kind of set it up for a day, a night, and maybe like an evening or something else. So you got when you're lighting an exterior scene, you got to remember that there's two kinds of main light sources. You have your either your sun or your moonlight, and that's usually the main light, and then you have your skylight. And you always got to keep those two in mind because when you look outside, let's say you see a tree with a shadow, you're going to see the sunlight, but the tree's shadow is filled in by that skylight. So those are two main light sources. So we're going to work on those two right now. So for this shot, let's go ahead and just make it like an afternoon kind of light. So let's go ahead and set up a directional light. And let's go ahead and move this light out, move it up. We can scale it and move it around, doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is its direction. So we can rotate it around. This is what's going to change the light. So if we press T, we can go ahead and kind of give it a little bit more control and adjust that angle. So during the day, the light has a higher angle. So let's go ahead and just set that up and go ahead and move that right there. All right, so I think that's pretty good for now. We'll take some tests and we'll adjust it. All right, now let's go ahead and go into our attribute editor and adjust this color. So we're going to give it kind of an orangey, kind of golden, yellowy kind of light color, just because that's kind of what color the sun is during the day. For all these things, we'll kind of leave them there for now. The intensity, and we're going to want to give some shadows. So I'm gonna go ahead and just go straight to ray tracing because I like the quality that it gives. So we'll turn that on. We're going to be using mental ray for this. So go ahead into your render settings, let that load up. Right now, mental ray is already set up, so just leave it on mental ray. Exit. All right, so let's go into our perspective render cam and let's take a render. All right, so you can see how we're getting a pretty cool result. I think that the color is maybe a little too intense, maybe not the brightness, but just the color. So we're going to go ahead and lower that saturation, just get a little bit more white color. But we'll leave it there, we'll leave it like that for now, and we're going to go ahead and move on. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about that kind of skylight that I was talking about. So you got to remember that it's kind of hard to duplicate a skylight because essentially the light is coming from the sky, the atmosphere. It's coming from this ball covering the earth. So we're gonna have to duplicate that in a way that we're getting a real soft light coming in from all angles. So we can actually use one of the ways I like to use is we can use directional lights, and although they come in a directional fashion, we can duplicate them and kind of give us that soft feel. So let's go ahead and choose our color first, and I'm going to go ahead and set it up facing towards our set, and let's go ahead and give it this color will represent the color of our sky. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and give it a little bit of a blue color, maybe a little bit darker. There you go. Go ahead and lower that intensity by a lot, so we'll give it a 0.1, and remember to turn off this emit specular because we don't want to give away this position of light. We'll just turn off the specular and no shadows. And what this is going to do is go ahead and fill in everything that's in shadow. What we're also going to do is kind of create an array of these. So let's go ahead and set it up, and then we'll duplicate it and rotate that just a little bit. Then we'll duplicate that again and kind of just do the same thing. And you can press Shift D to duplicate. And we'll kind of just do that. There you go. Now we have kind of angles, many lights in different angles. So this will replicate our sky. And we can offset these because right now they're all kind of in this fashion. So we'll kind of just offset them a little bit. And this is kind of replicating that soft skylight. Kind of just do that. So let's go ahead and go back to our render cam and take another render. We'll go ahead and save this and render. Alright, so right away you can see how we're getting some nice fill, and we're kind of replicating that bounce light that's coming from the sun. But you can tell that's a little bit dark underneath here. We're not getting enough of that fill light, so let's go ahead and we'll just add some more of these skylights. First, I'm going to go ahead and start to organize my work area. So this first directional light, we'll call this the sunlight. Sunlight. And then all of these we'll call sky fill. You can use any naming convention you want, but this is just sky fill. I'll just copy that. There you go. All right, so let's go ahead and let's look at our render, and we can see that there's not enough light kind of coming straight from bottom to up. We want to kind of fill in this bottom of this rocket, and we also want to get some more of that. So we're going to need one going straight up and straight down. So let's just take one of these, duplicate it, move it straight down, do another duplicate, and then we'll go straight up. Now we can move these around just so we can see them a little bit better. So this is basically our sky little cheat hack, how we can fake that skylight. So let's go ahead and come in here, render cam. We'll go ahead and save that. Actually, we can go ahead and compare the two so we can see kind of all that blue light from the sky coming in. So now with these extra lights, we're going to go ahead and try to fill in some of that underneath area. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. We've got a little bit more illumination underneath the inside there. We need a little more color. Now we want to focus on the kind of sun bounce light, because when the sunlight comes down, hits this, it's going to start to bounce and kind of bleed up into there. So let's go ahead and address that. So what I like to use is area lights because we get a nice soft shadow. That bounce light is not coming from a single source, it's just coming from the ground here. So we can go ahead and place a few of these lights around to kind of fake that. So let's go ahead and go ahead and put this into place. We'll do one right below this rocket, and I'll kind of just place it right in here. And just kind of scale it up. I'm going to give it kind of an orangey color, that bounce light from the sun. And also turn off that specular. And this is going to be a lower intensity, so let's go ahead and let's just start at 0.3. And we'll leave shadows off for now. They start to, especially with ray trace, they start to really slow down. And we're just in a testing phase right now, so we can go ahead and name this. We'll call this bounce sun 1. And we'll go ahead and duplicate that. And we'll start to work on some other areas. Oops, duplicate. So the sunlight, we're going to want to, let's go ahead and look at this. We're going to want to bounce a little bit of light back here from that sun bounce. So let's go ahead and work on that. Right above. And we might want to get a little bit of bounce coming from here onto the sides, not just underneath, but also in the front. So let's go and just duplicate that. All right, let's go into render cam and take a render. This value might be a little bit too high. We'll see. It's probably going to get blown out. So let's save that and take a render. All right, so yeah, you can see how those bounce lights are really blowing it out. But you can see the purpose is to kind of fill in and give that bounce light. So let's go ahead and adjust these. So let's go a lot lower. So it's 0.03. So a tenth of that. 0.03. All right, so let's go do it. Take another render. All right, so you can see how that's a lot better. Even here looks pretty nice, that bounce light. Although that area light might be a little bit too close to this little stand thing. You can see how that bounce reflection just doesn't seem right. So I'm gonna have to move that just a little bit to the left. Let's see what else. I think let's go ahead and compare. So I think the front of this thing is, the bounce light is pretty nice. I think we can give a little bit more bounce underneath that rocket. And we can also, if we look at the shape of that light, actually, yeah, it's pretty good. So that area light, if there was more shadow on this, then we would want to adjust the size of that bounce light. But I think the size of this is pretty good. So let's go ahead and just maybe increase that. We'll just double it, 0.06. And go back to our render cam, and since we're just adjusting that light or just this area, we can go ahead and just use our render region, and this will speed up the process of testing it. All right, so yeah, now you can see we're getting some better results. You know, that might be a little bit too bright. We can go maybe instead of 0.6, 0.3, we'll do 0.45, just somewhere in the middle. And that bounce light right there on that edge might be a little too much. We can do two things. We can move this light back, or we can kind of scale it in just so it's not getting this thing too much. We'll just kind of do both, that and that. And I think we're looking pretty good for now. If you notice behind these cups that it's almost pure black, and that's because we'd have no illumination coming from the back angle. So all of these skylights are coming from this direction. We can go ahead and just duplicate one of these and kind of face it towards the back way. So we'll just do that, and we'll give it a little bit of an angle just to offset that a little bit. And let's see what that's giving us. So actually, I'll just test it on these cups right here. I'll save that and do render region, see what we're getting. So yeah, it's not giving us much. You can go ahead and increase that back, maybe to 0.3. Give that a lot more color. And we might want to change that angle as well. So let's go ahead and just give that more of an angle just to catch that. Or maybe we can double up. So we'll do a 0.15, half of that, and then we'll just duplicate it, and then we'll go the other way. So remember, all these lights are just simulating that sky bounce light, that blue light coming from the sky. Save that, render. All right, so if we compare it, we can see that it's just giving a little bit more blue light. Actually, I think I should take a full render so we can see how these lights also affect the rest of the scene. So I'm just going to go and take a full render. All right, so overall, I think it's looking pretty decent. We've got some nice sunlight, nice bounce light. But what I want to do now is isolate just the skylight, and we're going to take away the sunlight and the sun bounce. So this is a good well, can't do two things at once. I'm going to go ahead and hide those bounce sun and the bounce, and then just the sunlight. And this is a good exercise, good way to see how well your sky is working. So if I were to just take off the sunlight and take a render, we should see what just the skylight is doing. So let's go ahead and just wait for this render to come. All right, so this is how our sky fill light is looking. If you can imagine that you're outside and it's daylight, and you're just to turn off the sun, and but the sky would still be blue. You're trying to want to mimic how that would look with no sun, but just the blue sky. So right now I think that we're a little dark. Even if we had no sun, it would still be pretty dark. I think the sky would illuminate more than what we're seeing here. So let's go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and just increase these intensities just a little bit. And what I think I'm gonna do is adjust the ones that are kind of coming in this direction. So I think this light should go up a lot more. So let's do a 0.3. This light, since it's not coming from the sky, this is kind of a bounce skylight. Let's give this a 0.15, a little bit more. This one will have a lot of coming directly from the sky, so let's give that a 0.3. And I think this one too, so let's give that a 0.3. So now we're adding a lot more illumination from the sky. So let's go ahead and save that and render that out. Alright, so this is what I would imagine the sky by itself, what the illumination would give. It'd be a lot brighter than kind of what we had. So I think that's pretty good. Now if we turn on our sunlight and the fill, then we should get kind of a better result and a little bit more realistic. So, all right, so that's starting to look pretty good. We've got some nice sunlight, a lot more indirect illumination. So if I were to kind of get rid of these other ones, just to compare, you can see how we have a lot more blue light from that sky. And actually, I think we can increase the sunlight and give it a little bit more color. I think now that we've added all that blue light, that now we can start to kind of give that sun a little bit more of an orange look. Not too orange, because that'll kind of indicate, evening, but just more color. I think that'll look pretty good. And let's see. Let's go and see what that gives us. Alright, so if we compare, you can see how we're getting a lot more color. Before, everything was just kind of the same, the same color. But now that we've kind of given that sun a little more orange, then we're starting to kind of break it up and give it a little more interesting look. Now, remember that the sun kind of gives a soft shadow. So let's go ahead and address those shadows. So now that we have ray tracing on, let's go ahead and increase that light angle. So let's go ahead and we'll try 3, and we'll increase the shadow rays to maybe 10. And let's save that. And since we've kind of increased these settings, they're going to increase our render time. So take note, right now it's about 48 seconds. Let's take a render and see what that gives us. Alright, so now you can see that how we're starting to get a nice soft shadow, and it's looking pretty good. I think we're just about done with this. So let's go ahead and try another setup. So I'm going to go ahead and group all these, and we'll call this our afternoon lighting setup, or just afternoon. So let's go ahead and just hide that, and we're going to go ahead and we'll start a new one. We'll create a group, and we'll call this, we'll try evening. So what we can actually do is, let's go and delete that. We can duplicate this because the setup is pretty much the same. We're just gonna have to change some of the colors and some of the attributes and lights. So if we unhide that, let's go ahead and for our perspective. The fill is gonna be the same, but the color is gonna be different. So if we imagine the sky, it's kind of got a little bit more blue purple color to it. So let's go ahead and adjust all of these. So go ahead and drag that a little bit to a purple like that, and give it a little bit more saturation. And Maya saves that color, so we can just pick that color for all of these. All right, a couple more. So that's about it for the sun or the sky. Now with the sun, we're gonna have to adjust this angle because during the evening it's got more of a low angle, something like that, and more of a red color. So let's go ahead and go that, and we'll see where we stand. So actually, I'll save this previous one, and we'll just render that out. All right, so that's looking pretty cool. We've got a nice kind of purpley fill light. I think that the sun is a little too dim. We can kind of increase the intensity on that. And also we forgot to adjust the bounce light. So we're still getting some of that bright white sunlight. We're gonna need to adjust the position and the color of those. So let's go ahead and adjust that. So first, let's go ahead and adjust the sun. Let's go ahead and just increase the intensity. So maybe a 1.4. Give it more of a brightness, and we'll adjust those bounce lights as well. So let's go ahead and select this light and turn off polygon selection, and we'll move that. Oops, so that's selected. So let's kind of think about how we want the bounce. We'll maybe place it right there. I think these placements are fine. Actually, we can probably get rid of this bounce light right here. We can keep this one. So let's go ahead and scale that down a little bit. Put that into place. And we'll give that more of an orangey bounce. This one, we'll move it a little bit back. Give that more of an orange. And for this one, we can just delete it. So we'll delete that, and let's see what we have. Alright, so I think that looks pretty decent for an evening shot. Kind of increase that sunlight, and the bounce light's looking a little bit better. Yeah, so I think we've covered how to simulate a skylight and the sunlight, and I think that's usually the most important parts, the most difficult parts for simulating a exterior scene. Alright, so if we wanted to also create a night scene, it's pretty much the same thing. So let's go ahead and change these colors. So at night they would kind of have a blue color. So let's go ahead and just give that a little bit more of a darker blue. And we'll go ahead and keep that for all the skylights. There you go. And let's say we wanted a moonlight, so the moon would kind of have a more light blue color, so something like that. And it wouldn't be as bright as the sun, so maybe like 0.75. And we can change the angle, so maybe just a higher. Maybe the moon's kind of directly above or up high. And not to forget these bounce lights, so they would bounce more of a blue color. So something like that. Maybe, yeah, I think that's fine. And maybe, there you go. Alright, so let's go ahead into our render cam. Alright, and we'll just take a render, see what we get. Alright, so I think that looks pretty good for a night shot. Our bounce light may need some adjustments, but other than that, I think it looks pretty good. You always want to keep in mind that at night, there's always more of a blue light. You never just want to have blackness, so you always want to your frame be filled with color. So you don't want just blackness. It's always better to add blue for night than just no light. Um, what else? Let's say we wanted the moonlight to be. Oops, I adjusted our evening. Let's say I wanted the moonlight to be a little bit more dim, so point maybe 3. So we got less moonlight, but we wanted to add maybe some artificial lighting, so we can add a point light, and we can kind of simulate maybe like if we were to have a lamp right here, we can pretend that there's a lamp here. Maybe give that an orangey color. It's a good opposite of our blue. And give it some shadows and adjust our radius, so 2 and 10. And we'll give that a decay linear for now. And increase the intensity, so maybe 10. So, oh, it looks like I moved my render cam, but I had it keyed, so you can see that there's a key here. So if I just move that frame, it'll snap it back in. So this right here will be our lamp light. So let's save this and take a render. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. We could probably increase that and give it a little bit more light. But if you notice that some of that sky fill light is kind of bright along this curb, and I think it shows throughout the whole image. So let's go ahead and adjust some of those skylights that are coming in at more of a horizontal angle. So I think this one is probably a little bit too bright, so we'll half that, 0.075. We'll check this one right here. That one's a little bit high, so we'll half that. And I think that's about it. Let's see this one. Try that one. Yeah, half that. So we're going to get a little bit less illumination, but I think it's going to work because we've got this lamp. So let's go ahead and increase that as well. We'll double it, and we'll see how that's looking. So we can see what we have now and what we had before. It's giving a little bit of nice color, and we'll check out our new adjustments. Alright, so that looks pretty cool. We've got some nice color oppositions. We've got our orangey colors, and we've got our blue, purple colors. So I think that gives us a nice color composition. So I think that's about it as far as exterior lighting. We're going to go ahead and in the next chapter get into some shader techniques and how we can use some of Mental Ray and Maya's shaders to kind of improve the look and give us a little bit more control over what we see in our final output. So, all right, thank you.